The Suez Canal, built by the French in 1858. It's a vital waterway running north to south through the Isthmus of Suez in northern Egypt, linking the Red Sea to the Mediterranean and from there to the Atlantic. It cuts weeks of travel time between Asia and Europe and is one of the busiest shipping channels in the world. Now, companies including oil giant BP and the world's largest shipping carrier, MSC, are suspending transit via the Red Sea, after several ships with links to Israel were attacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels. This means that shippers moving from Europe to Asia will need to take the alternative path around South Africa, past the Cape of Good Hope, costing shippers both time and money. $105 billion worth of cargo has already been diverted away from the Red Sea.
The bigger impact might actually be in manufactured goods, because yes, it's 12% of global trade transiting that area, but it's 30% of global container traffic, and that contains manufactured goods, cars, lorries, white goods, all sorts of things, and that's a serious delay. And you know, if you're talking about 2 to 3 weeks, it's not only 2 to 3 weeks delay, it's millions of dollars in extra fuel costs in taking a 6,000-mile detour around the south of Africa.
US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has announced an international mission to counter these attacks on commercial vessels, with the establishment of Operation Prosperity Guardian. The United Kingdom, Bahrain, and Canada are among the members of the mission, but some countries have made economic moves to thwart Israeli shippers, including Malaysia, which has banned Israeli shipping company Zim from docking at any Malaysian port, with the Transport Ministry set to implement a permanent prohibition on the company.
Malaysian government, for the first time among all the other governments, has made a very clear signal that if we do not stop, here are the consequences. And I think we could see, because the way that the Netanyahu is he's really handling all of this particular situation and the bombardment and the killing and the genocide of that, we could potentially see other Muslim countries and other, perhaps even allies, the countries which have been allies for Israel, taking very much similar action.
If the economic boycott against Israel expands, it will not only impact the Israeli economy, but also push up prices globally. And as Israel's onslaught shows no sign of slowing, growing international outrage over the killing of Palestinian civilians makes this scenario a real possibility. Emre Boz, TRT World.
Let's get more now from Marco Fragione. He's the Director General of the Institute of Export and International Trade, and he joins us now from London. Thank you for being with us today. Right, so several shipping companies have decided to suspend transits via the Red Sea. What is the economic impact for these companies and them having to essentially transit via another route, adding at least 14 or 15 days to their transit? What's the impact of all that?
There are a number of direct and immediate impacts. The first, of course, is the cost of that additional 2 weeks of sailing time. That's over 3,500 nautical miles to do the diversion around the Cape of Good Hope. The additional costs for the crew to be on board, the fact that when the ships arrive, they're arriving at the wrong time, the containers aren't available to be emptied or restocked, and you've got the potential for delay and congestion at the ports. And you've also got the impact of the increasing cost of insurance. So the insurance sector, which underwrites any shipping, has increased. We're looking at the real potential for that to double, if not further, in the coming days. So it's just an escalation and a cascading of delay and cost, which ultimately will have to be paid by the consumer.
Right, and then impact on product availability, I suppose, then. But Marco, also, from a logistical perspective, I assume this is not just about costs, right, but also about the availability of ships, given the longer journey. Is the sector able to cope?
Well, there is spare capacity, or there has been spare capacity within the shipping sector, but that is quickly being used up as people are looking at alternative routes rather than coming through Suez. We've also got the issues in Panama, which are constraining shipping. And we've seen recently, conversations I've been having, that people are looking for alternatives. So the possibility of moving to air freight to ship goods, or indeed to use the China-Europe rail routes. So I think that there's going to be a shift now, both in the trade routes for the shipping, which will be around the Cape of Good Hope, and also for different types of transport. And what that means is that the supply chain is being disrupted, and that tears in delay and cost, and also a shift in the routes that are taken, and therefore standing up new requirements for the multimodal transit routes into and across Europe. As this is a very significant issue that's taking place.
Right, and I also want to gauge your point of view on something else. There is already a vast and increasing military presence in the area. Is this sufficient to deter the threat, also bearing in mind that some of these attacks are really carried out with relatively low cost and easy to access materials such as small drones? How do you prevent that?
Well, certainly the conversations we've been having, there's a real concern actually as to what Operation Prosperity Guardian is seeking to achieve. If they are going to provide naval escort for commercial shipping, that's one issue, but I don't think that's exactly what's being proposed. If instead what they're intending to do is to try and shoot down the drones, you're quite right. These are relatively low cost drones, up to a maximum of about £2,000, and the resources required to shoot them down cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you're talking about an area that is really constrained. The Bab al-Manjab Strait is only 20 miles wide. And if you've got the commercial shipping in there and you've got military hardware in there, there is a very strong potential risk of something going wrong inadvertently. And Iran has been very clear that they will not tolerate US-led interference in the area. So anything that's going to be done to stop the Houthi attacks on commercial shipping does require a comprehensive community of key actors in the region coming together. And I think this is only going to get resolved around the negotiation table. I really can't see a long-term solution that involves military action.
What about more specifically the impact on the Israeli economy, given the combination of these restrictions, but also other restrictions to Israeli vessels that we've seen in certain countries in the last few days, like Malaysia? What's the likely overall impact on the Israeli economy of all that?
The reality, we're seeing currently a de facto blockade of access to Suez, which is going to cut off supplies, sea supplies into Israel. It's also going to have quite a significant impact on Egypt, who raised billions of dollars, I think it's between $9 and $10 billion a year, from the tolls for ships transiting through Suez. So if the ships aren't going through, they're not going to be raising those tolls. At a time when the Egyptian economy is suffering from significant inflation, that is problematic. There are potentially some winners, though, because the South African economy should receive a boost now from all the shipping going past South Africa, which will now dock and refuel in South Africa. So we can see an impact, a positive impact for South Africa as a result of the diversion. Though I'm afraid in total, the impact of what's happening is undoubtedly negative for the global economy.
Marco Fagione, thank you very much for being with us today. For more on this, we are also joined by Munro Anderson, live from London. He is the head of operations at Vessel Protect. Thank you for being with us. Munro, several companies, shipping companies, have decided to suspend transits via the Red Sea. What is the economic impact of adding 14 or even 15 days to the sea journey, including additional fuel costs, but also higher insurance costs?
Hello, Ludwika. Thanks very much for having me. So, look, for us, it's a binary equation. You know, you've got higher costs, lower yields, and those costs are ultimately passed on to the consumer. You know, at Vessel Protect, you know, we're a war risk insurer, and we're ultimately less concerned with vessels going around West Africa. We're more focused on providing, you know, consistent, appropriately priced war cover for commercial operators looking to continue conducting Red Sea transits. In terms of the economic impacts of vessels, you know, continue to conduct the Red Sea transits, you know, yes, you've got higher insurance rates, particularly with war risk cover. But with these incidents ongoing, there has to be an element of, you know, dynamic pricing, particularly around, you know, the insurance. However, you know, with the extension of the recently extended JWC high risk area in the Red Sea, you know, commercial operators are certainly now able to benefit from, you know, enhanced cover where they previously weren't.
And also, from a more logistical perspective, I assume this is not just about costs, right, but also about the availability of ships. Given the longer journey, is the sector able to cope?
Yeah, I think there's likely to be impacts on the available tonnage within the market. And certainly, reduced volume is likely to affect prices on the charter market. But I think we're some way off seeing the kinds of global restrictions and available tonnage that we saw during COVID.